You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone, Hour 2 for Tuesday, February the 2nd in the year 2016. My name is Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you live and around the world on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. www.xzoneradiotv.com is the website where you could listen to the X-Zone 724, 365, as well as the live broadcast Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. until midnight. Once again, right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My guest this hour is a young lady I've had the pleasure of talking to over several years. Her name is Tara Greene. And she is a natural-born gifted psychic intuitive. And Tara and I have been sharing the airwaves for many years. Tara does everything from, she's clairaudient, she's clairsentient, she's clairvoyant. She has experienced visions, dreams, and many metaphysical experiences throughout her life. She began delving into tarot as a teenager. Soon, many astrologers and spiritual teachers appeared in her life to guide her. Her mission is to help bring enlightenment, awareness, and healing. She is honored to be of service in connecting with and helping so many individuals. Joining me now from the Big TO is the one and only Tara Greene. And Tara, welcome back to the X-Zone.
Hey, thank you, Rob. So nice to be back. I'm having a deja vu here.
I had a deja vu, but it didn't come in my size, so I had to give it back.
Okay.
So Tara, what's new in the world of metaphysics?
Wow. Well, I think metaphysics are just spreading like wildfire.
Yeah.
I think people are becoming aware of, using shamans. I heard your ad while I was on the line here, and I thought, oh, that's fantastic, connecting shamanism to magic, to healing, to working with cancer patients. I think that's fantastic, and we really need that right now.
It seems that there is a global awakening, as we were talking with William Bulum in the hour before about out-of-body experiences, and the over 20,000 cases that people have submitted to on his online survey. 20,000 people are coming out of the closets in groves.
Well, that's great. Well, I think it was something that people were afraid to talk about before.
Why?
And, when they see, everybody's talking about it, I feel safe now. People aren't going to think I'm nuts.
Do you think that that with the so many different venues where people can find out so much about the right aspects of the metaphysical to the woo-woo aspects of metaphysical, like the internet is filled with self-proclaimed professionals and gurus when it comes to the New Age genre. How can somebody know between the woo-woo and the real McCoy like you?
Well, thank you. That's a very good question because, I see this all the time these days. I think part of it is people have to learn to just trust their gut instinct, and you have to ask questions. You have to be very smart. You have to be people have to prove it. They need to have experience. You have to validate their experience. just like if you'd go to a doctor, you know what I mean? You would want to make sure, or a lawyer, you would want to make sure that they're certified, who they're certified by, look at their reviews, things like that.
Yesterday there were the first caucuses in the United States, and a lot of people were surprised that Donald Trump did not come up as the Republican winner. That in fact, Ted Cruz kind of slipped in from behind. And, when you look at what happened in the Democrats, you had Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, a hair apart.
Yeah.
What do you think is happening to the world when we see the effects of this massive change happening right before our eyes within the political system, which in effect will affect each and every one of us?
Well, it will. And I mean, the big planetary changes that the world has been under since 2012 are still affecting us. And really, I see, Bernie Sanders is totally embodying all this new revolutionary energy that we really need to bring in. And then there's all this backlash from Ted Cruz, very much a heavy Christian, Bible-thumping Republicans,
I got to tell you something.
It's going to be very tough.
I got to
tell you. It's going to be very tough because the corporations, Hillary Clinton is still backed by big corporations.
Yeah.
And that's what's caused a lot of the problems. And, Bernie Sanders is amazing to me. He's totally transparent. He's totally honest. We've never seen anybody like that. And I think that's amazing that he's out there. And people are hearing it.
Well, we do have Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, and he's great. I think Justin's great, and everybody's feeling much more positive after the heavy Harper era, and now we're suffering from putting all the money into oil, and oil's just downhill now. It's that's just the way it is.
People want change, and we're seeing this within the world of philosophies when people are saying, "Hey, wait a minute, the old philosophy certainly hasn't been working. What is this New Age philosophy all about? What are metaphysics? What do they know?" And I'm talking about practitioners like yourself, Tara, who've been doing this for many years. What do they know, or what does Tara Greene know that I don't know? And can she teach me?
Okay. I use the astrology a lot because the astrology is very much about timing for events. And these big outer planets move in long-term cycles, and they create cultural changes. There was a very good book written about it called Cosmos and Psyche. It was the first astrology book that won a science award, actually. So, for example, the U.S. is having Saturn, which is the planet of karma, crossing its ascendant, which means the face of America is changing. And then within 2020, Pluto, which represents the soul of the country, the riches, the values, is going to be back to where it was in 1776. So either the Constitution is going to be totally rewritten at that time. So it's sort of critical who's the president when that happens in 2020.
All right.
So we want to study these big cycles, and we want to understand that New Age thought, people want a spirituality. They don't want the same old system. And that's filtering through.
So tell me, Tara, based on your astrological work, based on your psychic intuitiveness, who do you think is going to win the Republican side, the Democratic side, and ultimately, who is going to be the president of the United States that is going to be elected in November of 2016?
Okay, I usually do these predictions in advance, and originally I saw Clinton winning.
Yeah.
Okay, I think Trump's run is a big hoax just to fuel his own agenda. I don't think he's really serious about running. It's a big publicity stunt for him, and he's too wild, and nobody really takes him seriously. But he's unearthed a certain segment of the population who are very much in fear. But I also feel that there could be a revolution, a kind of civil war, something going on where there may not be a clear boundary, or there's going to be a big kerfluffle on the election day, because I've actually been sitting here looking at the astrology on election day this year. It's really intense. So somehow I almost felt that Obama may stay in power. And that could only come from the country being at war.
That's a scary thought.
Yeah, but it's very intense. And, sometimes, the corporate, the 1% who's in power are not going to want to let go of their power. The people, if there's still democratic process, then the best thing would be to vote for Sanders.
Why did you change from, you said that you originally saw Hillary Clinton.
Hillary. Mm-hmm.
What changed?
Well, because I have to say that actually here's a sense about metaphysics. When people didn't have as much consciousness, it was very easy to pinpoint an endpoint. It's like quantum physics, So now because there's so much more awareness, there's so much shifting. One thing happens here and it shifts the realm of possibilities over there. And that can shift.
So we're talking about a worldwide ripple effect.
Absolutely.
Gotcha. What are some of the other predictions that you have been able to foresee for the year 2016?
Well, I think there's going to be a big movement towards natural food with Jupiter and Virgo. People are going to get much more aware of the dangers of genetically modified foods. Also, these new viruses, that's also indicated by the planets, like the Zika virus. They've now discovered that it's caused by a genetically modified mosquito. So the economy is going to be pretty tight. There's also this sense of transparency needs to come out. So a lot more whistleblowers like Edward Snowden and a lot more big corporations being brought to trial, like all these things about sexual abuse issues are going to come out and be tried more. So this is the nature that we're going through for the next couple of years, actually. So what's real and what isn't is going to be the major crux that everybody has to deal with. And there has been tons of lies and illusion and glamour and, all that stuff. And there's going to be a big, oh, my God, what are we going to do when we realize things are not what we thought or what we were told in religion, in education, in the laws, in the banking industry? That's going to get blown wide up.
So are we looking at something like happened in the 60s with the hippie movement that
Absolutely.
Make love, not war? And it seems to me, and I think I've discussed this with you before, Tara, it seems that the hippies were way ahead of their time, or were they opening the door to the future of what we're seeing happening now?
They were exactly opening the door, and that's actually created by the planets. So in the mid-60s, this planet Uranus, which represents new technology, invention, pioneering, freedom, revolution, was together with the planet Pluto in Virgo. Pluto is the planet that rules long-term cycles, souls, riches.
Is that because is that because Pluto is way out there?
Yeah, Pluto's way out there. Yeah. So Pluto and Uranus, they only meet in very long-term cycles. So when they met in the 60s, that indicates they triggered that 60s revolution. And now Jupiter's sitting on that again. So, and they've been in these 90-degree angles to each other for the last 3 years. It's still going on. And now it's affecting certain countries, certain individuals. A lot of people have lost everything. The Arab Spring started under this. ISIS even. I don't like calling it ISIS, but the banking crisis, a week after Pluto entered Capricorn, the whole banking crisis, the mortgage crisis blew up. So, the wealth of the 1%, that's what the plutocracy, that's what Pluto symbolizes. So, yes, the 60s were started then,
right?
And now the real work is supposed to come into bloom.
So do you think that going back to the 60s and the idea and the philosophy that the younger generation was trying to get across to the older generation back then, and my God, I'm saying that and I'm saying, well, wait a minute, I am the older generation now. That, like we saw a an influx of music, of art in the 60s. There was a cultural revolution in the 60s. And it seems that there's an economic revolution or rebirth of industry that's happening now. Why don't the two just get together and work as one so that you can, all you need is love, can be joined with Allentown to get a message across and to get the ball rolling, so to speak?
Well, yeah, and I think it was a cultural revolution that went so far, but it has had long-term effects. The fact that those two planets were in Virgo, which represents the environment, I think now what we're seeing is it's an environmental crisis that's got to cause that revolution. And in fact, like Rachel Carson's Silent Spring came out around that time. So a lot of the change, it has to do with people realizing we can't keep using resources and knocking down all the forests. And I do believe in global warming is caused by pollution. And Uranus represents technology. So we do have the new technologies if the big corporations would let them out to, change all this and clean the environment up.
What scares the hell out of me every day, Tara, is that here we are abusing Mother Earth each and every day. One of these days, she is just going to get totally ticked off, and we are going to be the irritant on her skin, and when she starts scratching, watch out.
Well, she's been doing that. I mean, that's, some people feel it's that way. We are her children if we don't respect her. And, the Native Americans feel like if you mine gold or oil, you're taking her oil, her blood, you're taking her organs out. You can't keep doing that,
I agree. Yeah. I agree, but why don't we learn? What will it take? A catastrophe beyond the point
it may take catastrophe, but I feel like one of the big problems is it's this patriarchal 5,000-year-old idea that you dominate the earth. And that's written into the Genesis. And that's the problem. So if you go back to indigenous beliefs where you honor the earth, where somebody's just written a New York Times bestseller that trees are conscious and people are realizing that animals are conscious, and they never did. And our ancestors always knew that. And they lived in harmony with nature and the earth. And they weren't greedy. They weren't in fear. Yeah. They didn't want money and power. They just wanted to enjoy their lives and kind of walk in beauty. Walk in beauty is a beautiful native saying.
Stop and smell the roses.
Beauty, walk in beauty.
We certainly are doing so much harm to this planet. And there's no real need. I agree with you that the corporations have to release the alternative energies. And it's pretty bad, pretty pathetic to think that technology is there, but because people are greedy. They want to grab as much money as they can. They don't give a damn about you or myself or our loved ones, Tara. They only care about themselves and their bottom line. And when you've got governments around the world who are allowing these corporations to get away with this murderous aspect against Mother Earth, they're just as bad. And
they're being controlled now. They're being bought, basically. I really think that, any president is really just a puppet of the corporations. They can only do so much. Even if, like, Obama has had the Republican Party fight him every inch of the way, he really only has so much power. That's why I think there needs to be a total revolution, and you got to, start all over again. Because what it was founded on is not what's going on today.
Do you think that the time has come in the evolution of humanity that religious philosophies are no more required because we're no longer sheep?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think there's 35% of the millennials are say they're atheists or they're not attached to any specific, religion, which I think is a good thing. I think it's better to be spiritual and have your own intimate connection with the gods or with the goddesses or the earth or whatever you want to call it, the great mystery, so that nobody can tell you what to do. That's the whole point.
How do you differentiate between religious and spiritual?
Well, religion is an organized religion, okay? So to me, that's about power. It got corrupted. There is beautiful things in the Old Testament, beautiful sayings attributed to Jesus, and there is beautiful wisdom in all the different worldwide religions, from India. Even Islam has some beautiful things. I mean, they have Judaism, the Kabbalah, there's beautiful things. But spirituality is something that you feel yourself.
Yeah.
It's an awareness. It's your intuition. Everybody has it. It's natural. You have to remove the layers and the blocks and the programming, the brainwashing. So that's where the work is. You have to excavate.
I think that
yourself.
we all have spirituality within us, and that we're all connected spiritually. And I agree with you that the established religions have taken it away because, like major corporations, and that's all religion is today, they're corporations.
Yep.
Look at the Vatican. In my opinion, the Vatican is the typical example of a corporation. You have the Pope, who is the CEO and president. You've got the College of Cardinals, who are the board of directors. And then you've got the people who put the money, their tithing, into the collection pot each and every Sunday, who are the shareholders.
Right.
And if religion was to do what they profess to do, we wouldn't have all these magnificent cathedrals, Vatican City, the amount of property that is owned by churches.
Oh, the church?
Give it to the poor, give it to the hungry, give it to the sick.
Right.
What? And if Jesus was to come back, what would he say? Here you've
he'd
got
probably drop an atomic bomb on the Vatican.
Yeah.
But no, he'd say it would be just like he did, to the moneylenders. You don't rip people off. You give to the poor. You take care of the people.
And then you've got the people who say God helps those who help themselves. Oh. Hey.
My mother used to say that.
Yeah.
That's kind of a line.
Yeah, it sure is. Tara,
but there's some truth in it.
Tara, stand by. You and I have to take our break at the bottom of the hour. X-Zone Nation, Tara Greene is our special guest. www.taratarot.com, and her blog site is www.infinitynow.wordpress.com. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you live and around the world from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to send me an email, always happy to receive your emails. X-Zone at xzoneradiotv.com. Tara and I return on the other side of this 4-minute break. Don't go away. www.xzbn.net. You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Linnea Starr began to demonstrate a metaphysical connection to the spirit world as a little girl. Her family noticed the connection, but it was a great-grandmother who told the family that Linnea was indeed gifted. The great-grandmother, who was also gifted, felt that Linnea had indeed inherited these attributes. It has been noticed that oftentimes such things are passed down through the generations. Linnea was also born with a caul, a thin white membrane across a newborn's face. Legend has it that if the baby is born with this caul, the child will have second sight, or what we call psychic abilities. Linnea Starr does past, present, and future, and has the gift of prophecy. It is written within scriptures that if you are able to give factual information, and prophecies indeed come true, the gift indeed comes from the divine realm. Linnea Starr does large interactive groups as well as private gatherings. For more information on Linnea Starr or to contact Linnea for a one-on-one consultation, visit her website at www.linneastar.com. That's www.linneastar.com. Good real estate websites are not just about showing listings, but offering visitors valuable information about neighborhoods, market statistics, tips, and personal insights. Luckily, you will find that on Roost, but you won't on many other real estate websites in Budapest. That's why we created Roost. Roost is a website with tailored results for the foreign investor, curated by Hungarian-loving expats who found their home abroad and decided to roost in Budapest. Let Roost help you get started on the right foot. Whether you intend to live, work, play, retire, or simply invest abroad, Roost offers all types of properties in Budapest, from affordable studios to luxury homes. From neighborhood insights like where to grab a great coffee or how to buy property, our team of local experts can answer your questions and speak to the direct concerns of a foreign investor. Buying foreign property is an exciting and complex adventure. It can also be very time-consuming and costly if you don't have the best information and resources at hand. Roost provides professional real estate services and assistance to an international clientele of foreign property investors and rental apartment owners in Budapest. For more information on Roost, visit their website at www.roost.co. That's www.rooste.co. You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right. Transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond. Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. Tara Greene is my special guest this hour. www.taratarot.com. Her blog is www.infinitynow.wordpress.com. And on Twitter at 6 Cents Moment. Hey, Tara, welcome back, my dear friend.
Well, thank you, Rob.
I was thinking about you this morning at breakfast. I was reading the Hamilton Spectator, and it, like a lot of other newspapers, has a horoscope. Mm-hmm. And I have to ask you, Tara, there are so many millions of people in the world. I know that when you do an astrological reading, it takes you time. You need the birthplace, you need the time, and And it takes you a while to do a chart. How do these newspaper charts fare for accuracy? Like I looked at mine, and I cut it out this morning, and here we are. Let's see, 9:37 p.m. Eastern, and it's been totally wrong.
And I forget your birthday, Rob, although I remember doing your chart for you. When is your birthday?
April 27.
April 27th, okay.
Yeah.
So you're a Taurus.
Yes, I am.
The way those work is they're very general. I was just reading a big article that somebody had written online saying that the people who write those little short bits, which are just sun sign, so it's very general, are trying to be vague. So to me, that's a modern thing, the sun sign, popular things. It's not that accurate. There was an article about why people want to look at their horoscopes every day, and it's one of the biggest things on the Internet, actually. But because of the Internet, real astrology, in-depth astrology, people are becoming much more knowledgeable about it. So really, you wouldn't just look for your sun sign, you would look for where your moon is, because that's just as valuable, and your ascendant, if you know that.
Well, you see, when I open the newspaper, instead of going to the horoscopes, I go to the obituaries to see if my name is there. If my name isn't there, I know I've got a great day ahead of me. We were talking a little bit before about the Mother Earth and how people are basically raping her and pillaging her. You yourself, I believe, are a student of American shamanism and Wicca. Now, those are two very earthy practices and philosophies. How did you get started in those two disciplines? Okay,
well, I think, Rob, I've always remembered that I was this multi-dimensional person, and I didn't just come from here. And plus, I would have strangers come right up to me and tell me things since I was a child. So my nickname as a kid was Witch, because I had this black, unruly hair. And so people were just always coming up to me and sort of reminding me of who I was. And, I've always loved being in nature. So wherever I lived, even in the city, I would go sit in there was a little park, a swamp nearby, and that was like I would get lost there, and I'd pretend I was an animal, and I would try to walk silently, and I knew I could talk to the trees. So that was always just there for me, and then I started studying with a woman, Raya Mountain Dreamer, who's a very famous author now. She was my teacher for many years, and I apprenticed with her and did many vision quests and classes and shamanic healing for years. And that was what really grounded me, because largely I'm a person who's not really in my body, just because of who I am, And I just keep meeting shamans, shamans from Peru. I was in Sedona. There's amazing sound healers there that I've met in the last few years. So it's just, to me, it's intrinsic. You have to be in your body, and not, a lot of people want to ascend and leave the body, and they're talking about going to the fifth dimension, higher dimensions. It's like, no, you have to be here to ascend.
You have to be here to ascend. Leaving. Okay, explain that to me, because we've had guests on the show who say you have to leave your body to ascend, and you're saying, no, you've got to stay in your body to ascend.
Yeah, I think you have to be here, because the reason we've chosen to be in this physical dimension is to learn to bring that higher vibration down into the lowest, slowest, densest third dimension. Right? So you have to raise your vibration, and then you have to bring it down. So it's really about walking your talk. It's not about escaping. It's not about, because that whole ascension thing is kind of like heaven. It's kind of like Christians, they'll get your pie in the sky.
Yeah.
It's kind of very masculine to me. And to me, the earth is very feminine. And we have to go into a more feminine-based, earthy, honoring to survive.
Well, of course she's feminine. That's why it's called Mother Earth.
Right.
That doesn't take a lot of...
I know.
Yeah. But, so many people don't realize that. And speaking about Mother Earth, I have talked to so many witches, and I'm putting that in brackets, or members who follow Wicca, and they're the nicest people in the world. They give a damn. So why do witches and those who follow Wicca have such a bad reputation? Or they used to anyway. They used to.
That was created by the Catholic Church. I mean, the whole witch burnings was created by the Catholic Church because the women had power. They were herbalists, they were midwives, they were doctors, and as the scientific sort of, reasoning took over, and the church was just totally down on women. So if they accused women of being witches, and, there was no way you could win in their trials and their tortures, then they would get to take over their property, their land. It's just about destroying women. And I remember being burned at the stake. I had a lot of memories of that. And millions of women were, and men too. And people remember this, and I think that's why there's a resurgence through, Harry Potter kind of brought it into the mainstream magic, which is because it's meant to come back, because these people are meant to take back their power. And yes, they honor the earth. You don't do harm. It's about being very honest,
Is the Church of Wicca is there a Church of Wicca? I remember hearing that once or twice.
Well, there's paganism. There's neo-pagans,
right,
and that started in England in the 50s, I believe. They have a sort of loose kind of structure, but they don't want to be hierarchical.
Right. Oh, okay. Are more and more people turning to Wicca and alternative philosophies than the established philosophies, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think Wicca is like the fastest growing, I wouldn't call it a religion, spiritual belief in America. For sure. All the young kids are totally into it. Like they're, tarot cards, astrology. Yeah. I'm glad that, all of the young people, all the millennials are totally into this. They sell a really nice tarot deck through Urban Outfitters, and women are totally into being empowered to doing rituals. We just did one tonight because tonight is the Feast of Imbolc, which is an ancient Irish tradition. We're halfway between the winter solstice and the spring equinox.
Speaking about Irish, this is going to be a plug. George Miller is coming on our show. And you're probably saying, who is George Miller? Well, this guy here is going to be talking about Irish folklore, the unicorns, leprechauns.
Oh, cool.
And you may know him better as one of the Irish Rovers who sang who sang the unicorn song. We're looking forward to having George on the show.
Well, actually, it's interesting you're mentioning the unicorn because before I was doing my 2016 predictions, I was asking for an image, and the unicorn was the one that came up.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Fascinating. Synchronicity? Coincidence? I think
absolutely.
not. Yeah. I don't think it's coincidence. I think there's more to it than that. I believe that people meet for a specific reason. Maybe it's something that happened in the past. Maybe it has something to do with the future. And I'll tell you something, Tara. Doing this show for 24 years, I have seen such a change in myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was this staunch, hard-nosed former investigator. If it wasn't black and white, it didn't exist. Well, it still doesn't exist in many of my categories that I talk about. But when it comes to the topics that you and I discuss, shamanism, Wicca, how Mother Earth is being raped, my eyes have been opened.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's more.
Well, that's great. And congratulations on 24 years, Rob. That's an amazing accomplishment.
God. Oh, my God. 24 years, 3,826 guests later.
Wow. So you've had quite an education.
I have. And this is why I feel so blessed to be doing what I'm doing. And I'm proud to call you a friend because you and I have been on the show many times.
Yeah.
You and I have met in person. You've come to our home.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I've made good, solid friendships over the years.
Well, that's wonderful.
And I just hope that, and I know for a fact the message gets out there, and all we want, each and every show, is for one heart to open. Just one heart. Mm-hmm. And I know that the great work you do, talking to the different people you do, and the great work that you do for charities, You do that as well, my friend.
Yeah, I do. And, if people are really in need, I will help them.
Yeah.
And, the thing is to bring awareness, to bring enlightenment, to make people more conscious. And that's what you're doing.
No, that's what we are doing.
Well, okay, that's what we are doing.
It's we. And every guest that comes on is a part of the jigsaw puzzle. Like I've said this many times, Tara, that we all have a piece of the jigsaw puzzle to the universe in our pockets. The greatest mysteries in the world in our pocket. And all we need to do is all gather around a giant-sized table and put our piece of the puzzle on the table, and everyone working together on this puzzle with all these pieces, we will solve all the mysteries.
Oh, absolutely. So did you hear about this peace meditation for I'll have to call them ISIS, that went on yesterday?
No.
This guy, James Twyman. Have you ever had him on your show?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay, he calls himself a peace troubadour, and he went to Bosnia in the 90s and sang for peace, and he met these incredible spiritual beings, and long and short story, he goes to places where there's war, and so he was really on the Israeli border yesterday with leaders of Jewish, Christian, and Muslim leaders, and he had put out a call for a worldwide meditation, which I was part of yesterday. So he said they were in Israel overlooking Syria, and there was fighting going on, and when they started the meditation, the gunfire stopped. They meditated for 15 minutes. Everything went totally silent, and then these wolves started howling.
Wolves?
Wolves.
In Syria?
In Syria.
I didn't know there were
or maybe they were
there.
coyotes, but assuming it was in the day. But, in a shamanic sense, animals are spirit messengers.
Yes, yeah.
And wolves represent teachers, and they work together. So I thought that was a great story, and that was, that's been documented by, I knew someone who was meditating years ago in El Salvador, and through the CIA was investigating how meditation could be used to stop conflict.
Right.
So, that kind of thing. And those go on all the time. People meditating regularly to stop the radiation in Fukushima and different things, So it is coming.
When you talk about meditation, I still think that a lot of people have the old guru sitting there with a turban on in the lotus position. Do we really need to wear a turban? Do we really need to be in the lotus position? How would you tell someone who has never thought of meditating before, because of that vision in their mind's eye, listening tonight, how they can meditate?
Well, they have actually technological tools to help you these days. They sell these things called binaural beats and theta waves and delta waves, and you listen to them and you don't hear it. It's a subliminal signal. So you would just close your eyes and you watch your breathing. What you're trying to do is to get your mind to stop chattering. That's what meditation is, stopping the mind, which Carlos Castaneda called stopping the world. And so it's really just very simple. You can sit in a chair, you can sit up. That meditation started in India, so that's why we have that image of the yogis, the gurus wearing the turbans and sitting lotus, but you don't have to. It's really just about awareness and learning to become a watcher of your consciousness. And then you'll see, who is it that's breathing? You'll start to detach from your ego. That's the whole point of meditation. And that's when you find that we're all connected to everybody else and everything in the cosmos. You'll start to hear, if you want to call it God or your higher self or your guardian angel, speaking to you directly. That's what spirituality is.
So when I go home at night, after the show and after all the work I have to do, I like to sit upstairs in the dark and just sit there. And just let my mind go blank. Is that meditating?
Yep, that's a meditation.
Wow.
I mean, for some people, I worked with a guru and he said, if you're really into fixing your car, and when you're fixing your car, you're totally focused in the present on that car.
Right.
That's a meditation. As long as you're totally involved in the present, with what you're doing, that's meditation. So if you're walking in the woods or even walking with your dog or doing the dishes or whatever it is, as long as you're not connecting to your ego, that's meditation.
Can we say then...
Some people can call it daydreaming even.
I was just going to ask you about that because many people who drive the 401 between Toronto and Montreal, many of them report a loss of time where, they have been driving and the next thing they know, they're at an exit that they didn't think they were even near, and some people call it highway hypnosis. Would this be a form of meditation too while they're driving?
It is, because your body's kind of automatically knows how to run the car.
Right.
And so another part of your mind is connecting to something else, because there's many levels of awareness going on all the time. We're only using 10% of our brain to stay conscious. You don't really want to space out too much when you're driving, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But, it's a shifting awareness, and the shamans do something called shifting your assemblage point, which is like your consciousness. So you would want to shift your consciousness, which is like shifting a radio station dial. You get another signal.
Gotcha. Most people went to Woodstock, New York in the 60s to have a good time, to the big Woodstock event there. But you were in Woodstock where you were initiated as Tara, as the Green Witch in Woodstock.
Yeah, well, that was from a woman named, she calls herself Susan Weed.
Right.
And she's an herbalist who came to Woodstock in the 60s and stayed there.
Wow.
And she has a beautiful 50-acre farm, and she's been an herbalist for all those years. And so she has this thing called the Wise Woman Center, and she's sold millions of books now because she's been very much about, called it the non-heroic healing method, natural, that the body will naturally help heal itself through herbs, through plants, through connecting to the earth.
Well, the original herbalists were the original pharmacists. So why are people so surprised these days when people like yourself and other people who promote natural health remedies, why do people get surprised when they talk about herbs? Because gosh darn it.
Because we bought it. We've been sold this whole thing about progress and technology. Being better than the old ways. That was the old-fashioned. They, put it in like, what did they know, right?
They knew a hell of a lot more than we know now.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. It's a strange way because, here we are, people are living to 80, 90, 100. Their quality of life, God bless them, is not the best. I don't believe that we were meant to live as long as we're living now. Mind you, I get this argument all the time that people are living longer based on big pharma because it's all part of the money-making scheme to keep people longer, to put them in hospitals, to healthcare problems. People make money on people, and that is so wrong.
Oh, yeah, no, Rob, don't get me started on that one. I went through that with my parents. And, yeah, it's so obvious. It is. You have to see how cynical it is. It's just a big money-making machine.
Yep.
Right from the minute you're born, right through. They diagnose kids with ADD and put them on really dangerous drugs. In Europe, they don't diagnose kids that way. Kids don't have ADD. It's very much a big pharma American or North American kind of thing.
Hey, when I went to school, ADHD was never heard of. If a kid was unruly, he went down to the principal's office and got a strapping. That was it. Boy, that kid changed his tune. My kids have gone through elementary school, high school. None of my kids were put on Ritalin. And Ritalin, so many people who have their kids on Ritalin do not realize that Ritalin is in the same pharmacological family as cocaine.
Right. It's an addictive drug.
It is, very.
And a lot of those mass shootings that happen in the States are kids that are on those antidepressants. And, it's very dangerous stuff.
It is. And you know what? It's so sad when society starts preying on the youth, our future generations, in order to get them hooked so that they can make money.
Right.
So that just goes to show that money is indeed the root of all evil.
Right. But, people don't have to buy into it. So the more educated you are, the more you realize, wait, I don't want have my kid vaccinated when they're 3 months old, and I don't want to take all this stuff, and I don't want all the chemicals and everything. And then you stop buying it. And, you have power through what you purchase, and you can refuse to do certain things.
Yeah, but you know what? Today, everybody is brainwashed. You are brainwashed from the moment you turn your TV on to the moment you turn your computer on, whenever you're doing the internet searches, you're reading articles and ads pop up. You're being brainwashed. And when when I was a kid, there was no such thing as a computer. If you wanted entertainment, you went outside, played baseball, went fishing. Here's a strange idea. Cut the lawn for Mom and Dad. Wash the car. There were so many things that we could do. And kids today can still do it, but they'd rather sit in front of a laptop, an iPad, and get fat. It's a sad situation.
Well, the parents have to push them, too. Of
course. And you see, today parents don't want to be parents. They want to be best friends.
Right.
Big problem.
And that doesn't really work for the kids. And these kids are not prepared to go out into the world, and they're not prepared when things aren't handed to them. Yep. They're very weak.
And what's going to happen, Tara, the day that there is a solar flare of the magnitude that knocks out the internet for these kids like we had, 15, not even, about 10 years ago? What is going to happen to them? Oh, my God.
Well, it's going to be total chaos, and that kind of thing can happen anytime. There's a really great website called BP Earthwatch, and even though the guy's a little bit of a Christian, he has incredibly accurate information about solar flares, about all these things that are going on that are still being covered up in the media. There's a big star that's coming very close to the Earth, March the 5th, I believe, not being reported in the media.
Well, we'll have to check that out. And Tara, as always, my dear friend, I want to thank you ever so much for coming on the show tonight.
Well, thank you, Rob. So wonderful to be back and hear your voice and connect with the X-Zone.
Well, we're going to have to get
you back. I want to wish everybody a blessed 2016.
Well, you're going to be on the show in the future. You know that. You're a psychic, so I didn't really have to say that. Let our listeners know how they can find out more about you, Tara, and contact you.
Okay. You can go to my website, which is taratarot.com, TAROT.com, and it's linked to my blog there as well, too.
Tara, take care of yourself, my dear, and regards to your
too,
family.
Rob.
So long now.
And to yours, too. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Exonation, Tara was my guest this hour, www.taratarot.com. Her blog is www.infinitynow.wordpress.com. And you can Twitter with Tara at Sixth Sense Moment. That's the number 6, THSENSEMOMENT. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. Hey, listen. You've heard me complain about my trip to Cuba, huh? It sucked. I will never, ever go to Cuba again. I'd like you to go and see what I was talking about. Go to www.rel-mar.com/Cuba. There's a video there, and there's 62 pages of other people who have complained about the place that we were supposed to enjoy a relaxation with. And then Sunwing had the audacity to say, well, you know what, we're not going to give you anything because you guys signed a disclaimer. But here's a $150 voucher each for a future trip using Sunwing. I don't think so. I'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X-Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell. Don't go away.